Hey guys, I woke up this morning asking myself, how is your career going? What have you learned so far and where do you think you're going? If these are questions you've asked yourself in the past or asking yourself even at the moment, I think you're really going to enjoy today's video. So for today's video, I want to really dive deep into my personal career journey in finance. Although my career has been in finance, everything I'm going to share today will relate to you no matter what industry you are currently working in. Now, I want to share some real life experiences. I've written down my entire career journey on my board, and I'm going to be sharing 7 surprising life lessons I've learned on the journey, among many others. And I'll walk through various stages of my career and then weave in these life lessons and sharing some real life examples as well. If that sounds good, let's jump straight into today's video. Now, over here is a little summary on my board of what my career has looked like over the last, say, 22 years, right? So starting here in 2002 when I began university, all the way to the moment, as well as I'll be sharing what my reflections are on how I'm thinking about my career going forward, and hopefully sharing these various items and sharing what I've learned will be some inspiration to you on your journey of building your own career, okay? So in 2002, I started university and I started studying economics and accountancy as a joint degree, right? And the one lesson I learned here at university was that doing your own thing as early as possible can pay. Okay, that's the lesson, right? And I tell you why, because, and I'll come back to the board in a minute. I tell you why, because when I went to university at that stage of my life, I didn't have very much going for me at all. In 2002, I was only 3 years into life in the UK. As a first generation immigrant, I was still trying to find my feet. And one thing I figured out at that stage of my life was that I needed to do something fairly radical to be able to emerge from university with a degree and a result worth having, such that I could then hopefully start my career and it could help to propel my career for the future. So doing my own thing was absolutely instrumental. At that time of my life, a lot of people were, doing what people do, all the clubs, all the parties, all the socials were really happening. But one thing I focused on very strongly at that stage of my life was really about doing my own thing, really focusing very strongly, honing in on what I wanted, which was that I wanted a first class degree from going to university. I really wanted to come out at the very top in my year, and hopefully that might help me to start off a career in maybe finance or something of that nature. So having that goal made a big difference and really focusing on that goal. I remember very well actually waking up almost every day at 4:30 in the morning, listening to Classic FM just to hear some beautiful music, and once in a while I'd hear the presenter. And doing all of that just helped me really buckle down on making sure that I'm studying, I'm doing what's necessary, and obviously learning from my friends and learning from uni and what have you. But eventually, after 3 years, I'd emerge, with a degree that I really wanted. I finished, got a first class degree in economics and accountancy as a joint degree, and that would then lead me into the second phase of my career journey, which would be that I would try to get a training contract to begin as a chartered accountant, studying the ACA with the Institute of Chartered Accountants. I can't say the word, Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, the ICAW. And I began that career here in 2006, and I would focus over here for about 2 years and a bit, passing all the exams first time and, technically or officially becoming qualified in 2009. Now, the lesson I learned at this stage of my life, and I've written down here on my phone, is that the season of sowing does not last forever. It's a gift of time of planting trees that could last for decades. Now, I wrote that lesson down because this stage of my life was particularly challenging, because whilst you're training as a chartered accountant, as many accountants who maybe watch our channel will know, for the qualification I was doing and the training contract I was doing, if you failed one exam, you effectively lost your job, basically. You could basically get sacked from your job in that period between 2006 and 2009. So for me, this was a very, very difficult phase, but I also saw this phase of my career as a phase of sowing very, very important seeds, because I knew that if I could then become somebody who had a recognized qualification, one that's in a respected career as a chartered accountant, that will help, not only help with my confidence, it will help with my career outcomes, it will help with my earnings and all of those things. So this was a very, very important phase of sowing seeds. And I guess the question I've got for you as you watch this video at this stage is, in what season of life do you think you're in? Do you think you're in that sowing season, or are you in the waiting season, or are you in the harvesting season? Yeah, this is kind of how I look at it. For me, this phase of my career journey was all about sowing. And sowing is never, ever pretty, because you are putting a lot of time in. That time could be into your job, could be into a side hustle you might have, it could be into a qualification you're currently going through, it could be that you're trying to get a promotion. But the thing I wanted to help you to realize with this point is that the sowing of seeds does not last forever. For me, it lasted 3 years at that phase of my life, but the seeds, the fruit from that seed that was sown is still helping me out at this stage of my life today. Okay, that's tip number 2. Now, tip number 3 is keep asking and it will be given unto you. Now, let me explain what I mean there. So coming back here to my career journey again, as soon as I qualified in 2009, I got made redundant. That was it. It was like, you've been working so hard, but the global financial crisis, 2008/2009, it was just game over. But anyway, I started another career here as a management accountant. That's what that is, the MA. And what I realized about this phase of my life in these 5 years was that I did a lot of asking. I mean, like, my income went crazy in this phase, at least doubled, at least once. In this period of 5 years, because I went from not only working as a management accountant in the asset management business to then leaving, because if you're doing a job and you're not really getting what you want from that job, you don't see room for growth, you don't see room for growth for you as an individual or for your income, don't worry, you need to get out. So I left and went and looked for another job, and my peers actually who remained in the job, I actually went ahead of them because I took on a more senior role as a financial controller. So, a bit more pay, a bit more responsibility and all those things. And then I'd keep on, almost hustling in that job and asking, going from a much larger company to a medium-sized company to then becoming head of finance in that space after being there for a while. And here is, about 5 years, yeah? I'd become head of finance and I'd keep asking. This is the key thing. This is the point. Keep asking and it'll be given onto you. Most people don't ask for stuff, so nothing really happens in their lives. But because I kept asking, and one of the things I asked for whilst I was there was to ask for an executive MBA to be paid for. Yeah, for half of it to be paid for, 50%, yeah, which would bring me onto this next phase of my journey from 2014 to 2016. Now, I needed the exec MBA because I'd been in a job for 5 years, and as you know, work gets very boring, and you get fed up of listening to people a lot of time, and you really just want to create a different path for yourself. It might be that you might feel your work's a bit stale and you want to improve your knowledge or what have you. So I felt that I needed to get out there and learn something else for me to move up to that next level. And this is where the exec MBA thing came in. And by the way, it's not compulsory that anyone should do a qualification like that, but I wanted to, and I wanted to do it at a really good institution or school. So I wanted to apply to Oxbridge. I went to Judge Business School, University of Cambridge, and that was really my aspiration. I didn't think I'd ever get there, but I just wanted to. And this taught me something actually about life, in that a lot of the time, to get to a particular destination, you have to have a sense for what that destination could look like. You have to have a sense for, what do I want out of that place? What is it I'm looking for? What does it actually look like? You might not have an exact picture of it, but having some idea gives you a sense of direction. For me, I knew that this was going to be part of my future direction in terms of where I saw my career going. Now, on the point about keep asking, I'll be giving to you, I want to just recommend, two resources that helped me. So one is this book here. This is the first one I read, actually, Getting to a Yes. It's a great book about negotiating, and at the back of it, it says, don't bargain over positions, separate the people from the problem, and insist on an objective criteria. Really good book. And another book that I read a few years later is this one here called Never Split the Difference. Another really good book on helping you to negotiate and to learn how to position yourself. And the reason I mention that is that those resources helped me a lot, actually, because when you do an exec MBA, you get these golden handcuffs, right? And you're supposed to be locked into your organization that you work, the people that funded the thing for you for God knows how long, usually like 3 or 5 years or whatever. But I did it and I was able to get out of it. That's probably a subject for another video. But reading books like I just mentioned just there, really helped me because I found my way out of the scenario, right? I just put it that way and leave it there. Yeah, but that's probably subject for maybe when when I see you in person, whoever you are. But anyway, I got out of it because I figured the way out, okay? And I would then move on to that next level that I'd always dreamt about, which was that I would go on one day to become a finance director. I'd go on to become a chief financial officer. So my first kind of FD type role was as a European finance director, a job that actually kicked off around here. And the funny thing about that job was that it looked really good on paper. It paid really well and all of those things, but it was it was just hell for me because I just struggled with culture and I struggled with, having two bosses. That was one of my biggest frustrations, was having two people I was reporting into, and it was a complete and utter nightmare from a cultural perspective. But, I want to just come back to the lessons because I've shared 3 so far. And the 4th lesson I want to share was and this is a lesson, is to understand how you want to move in the world. You need to understand who you are first, okay? Now, I mentioned that lesson 4 because when I came here to do this exec MBA, before I moved on to the CFO role, this is 2 years of learning. Very interesting, challenging environment, and I absolutely loved every moment. But when you're in an environment like that, you're with some very, very intelligent people who are very senior. A lot of them are, they basically look after, they're like country managers, they look after they work for global companies, they're CEOs, CTOs, basically they're C-levels, every kind of C-level you can imagine. These are these guys, right? So all of them are very, very intelligent people. So I figured out that for me to actually not only survive in this space, but thrive in this space, I needed to really understand what I wanted. I needed to understand who I was and what I wanted out of life at this phase. And I realized that for me, at this phase of my life, I wasn't really after knowledge per se. I was more after understanding. That's a whole different thing to just knowledge, right? So for me, it was all about figuring out, and isn't it funny that, not long after that, the Humble Penny would get founded, right? So for me, it was really about understanding and how that might then inform the next phase of my life, which I didn't know, by the way. As time will pass in 2016, I would then go on to these C-level roles and become, the FD and what have you, chief financial officer, again in the investment business. And this is where I learned lesson number 5. And this is probably, the one lesson that has really, really transformed my life in so many ways. And here's the lesson. The lesson is this. The lesson is that financial freedom is never given to you. You have to take it. You have to take it. Now, I say this because, let me give you some context, right? So at this phase of my life, I was at a phase where, with careers, you have a job, you have all these perks, as you probably do have in your job now. These corporate jobs give you all these perks because they're trying to basically dangle the carrot in front of you and keep you where you are, right? So a lot of those perks were were there, and one of the biggest perks, which is linked to financial freedom, funny enough, was that, we had this calculation, like this pot of money that would be available to the team that I work, part of the organization, the team that I worked in. And if things went well, the companies we invested in, would one day, exit from them at these crazy returns. If all these amazing things happen, then potentially, this is a key bit, potentially I might be, my allocation of this pot might be effectively in the millions. It might be like, I don't know, like 3 million, 4 million, 2 million, whatever. But basically, it's a 7-figure amount. Now, what's interesting about that psychologically, when you think about it, this is the lesson I learned, right? And the reality of what panned out in life, looking back now from where I am now, is that none of all of that stuff that was being dangled in front of me actually ended up turning out how it was meant to turn out. Yeah. So had I been relying on someone creating my financial freedom for me, I would be nowhere near where I am today. And this is why it's very important to have your own plans that are different to what you might be offered in a corporate job, what anyone might be promising you. Because one of the things I've always hated in my career journey so far is just this feeling that I'm relying on other people for my financial destiny. Oh, I hate that so much. It's one of the biggest things, one of my biggest motivators for wanting to become financially independent. Going way back, right? Going way back to even here, 2010, when I started investing in the stock market. One of the biggest motivations is why I loved books that were exposing me to the mindset of creating my own personal freedoms. So when I then had this situation here where things didn't quite go how I wanted, it left an important lesson that I've just never forgotten, which is that, thank goodness, I had already began my journey of creating the life I wanted, working things that you guys might watch on our channel, things like trying to pay off our mortgage and investing in the stock market, investing in property, all those things, right? All those things had been happening quietly from the money that I was earning, the money that my wife Mary was earning, and all those various elements. So I say that to say to you, never expect anyone to create your financial freedom. It's your responsibility. You should almost repeat it after me. Financial freedom is your responsibility, not anybody else's. Yeah. Okay, that brings me to point number 6. And this is another really important one, again, connected to the career journey. And the point is, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Okay? Now, I'm coming back here to this little board here because, we then started the Humble Penny here in 2017 because I just wanted something else, something to give me a sense of purpose in what I was doing and to give me another alternative, right? The Humble Penny started right here, 2017, THP, right? And eventually 2020 will happen. And you will remember 2020 very well because this is the COVID-19, the pandemic that happened, the thing that changed everybody's world in so many ways, including mine, because that's when I left this career to say, do you know what? I'm in a pretty good place in life, more generally speaking, financially. This is the time for me to take a leap and try something else. And I took that leap in 2020 to then effectively start a new career. But using, and this is the key bit, using all the skills I'd acquired so far. So there was no wasted experience. So there was no beef with my career history. It's more that I've had to go through this career to acquire a certain level of experience, life exposure, wisdom, to then apply it to something else. And this is a key point, actually. If you're somebody who is currently trying to look for something you want to do with your career, there's no new knowledge you need to acquire per se. It's a question of how could I use what I already know in a different way. Yeah, how could I use skills that I might not even be using in my day job, I might be using in my personal life, or even skills using your day job. How could I use that to then create a new opportunity to serve a new market, to explore a new business model, all those kinds of things. And this is what I was exploring. And bear in mind, I've not even said a few things. Along this journey, other things happened. We started a nursery business over there. I explored a bunch of other opportunities in the middle here. But I'm just sharing things that you know about, things like the Humble Penny and that kind of thing. And also, Financial Joy Academy, I should mention, was also founded in this space in 2020, just before the pandemic, in Feb 2020. Right? So my new career then became in 2020 to 2024. And it's an interesting one because I took away a really important point that I mentioned earlier, which is that, on that point about the way you do anything is the way you do everything. The thing I did when I became my own boss, and this is the thing people aspire towards, they're like, I want to be my own boss. But it's not that easy, because you need to have a certain level of personal responsibility, because you don't have anyone saying to you, hey, here's your job. Here's your role. Here's go and do this. Here's your deadline. You have to become that person, which is why I said the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Such a key point, because for me, I saw excellence in everything I was doing, in all aspects of my life. I was seeking excellence in my marriage to my wife, Mary, in parenting our two children, excellence in the work we're doing with the Humble Penny, in writing blog posts, excellence in producing YouTube videos, making sure we show up every single week, whether it's snowing or whether it's sunny or whether it's raining. Excellence in making sure we're still creating valuable content. Excellence in things like writing a book, our book, Financial Joy, which came out earlier this year. Excellence in making sure that whoever came across that book, even if they didn't know who we were, would experience a life transformation. But the key thing is that excellence began in my personal day-to-day life, how I show up for my family, how I show up for myself, meant that I could show up better as a business owner. And it means that I will show up better in future opportunities when I think about my career and so on. Okay, which then brings me to this step. So this step now, my career is varied. Now obviously I run my own company with my wife. So, you become your own boss, CEO. I'm an author, as I mentioned, a Sunday Times bestselling author, international speaker, I do financial coach, business coach, blogger, all these things that we do, which, by the way, I should mention, if you asked me back here about my career, and I hope this inspires somebody in some way, if you asked me back here, did I ever think I'd be doing any of this stuff? No, because why would I be someone creating videos on YouTube or writing blog posts or even think that I might become an author? None of that ever occurred to me as something that I might eventually do in my life, which for me is a positive thing because it means that no matter where you are in your life journey so far, life has a really interesting way of surprising us. You might suddenly find yourself in a career that you really, really enjoy, but also one that gives you that fulfillment, but also one that creates an income for you and really ticks all the boxes. But it requires a certain level of bravery. A certain level of bravery for you to be that person who takes that leap. And then the final bit I want to talk about regarding careers is what's happening going forwards. When I think about my career at the moment, in terms of how's it going and where do I think I'm going personally. And honestly, this is a personal reflection because, one thing I figured out on the journey is that we as individuals have the power to really decide where we want to go. Like, you want to head in that direction, you can. If you want to head in that direction, you can. You can absolutely do whatever you want to do. But a big underlying, almost underpinning aspect of all this is the money question, which is, to what extent can your finances sustain the direction that you want to head in? Which is why a lot of us work in jobs we hate simply because we just want to be able to pay our bills and what have you. I think, thinking about my own personal circumstances, that a lot of my future direction will be led by point number 7, which is when you are free, enjoy the harvest and take others along with you. Which is my final point that I wanted to share today. So a lot of my personal thoughts on where I think I'm heading from a career perspective, with my wife, Mary, or just by myself, even from just my own thinking about what I'm thinking about in my head as an individual. a lot of it is really driven by a sense of how do we help people achieve outcomes? How do we serve our communities? How do we help people achieve positive economic outcomes? I'll give you an example. You could just watch this YouTube video and you will learn incredible things here because we put out hundreds and hundreds of videos, right? But at the same time, there are other people who might watch the videos but might not actually take action. So a lot of the work I see us doing now is taking that next step. For example, when we wrote our book, I'll give you an example, Financial Joy. When we wrote this book to be unusual in that it's a 10-week plan. Why did we do that? We did it that way to help to effect the right behaviors, for people to develop the right habits as they go through the plan, so that at the end of every week you had things to do so that you would then get the results. So I kind of feel like a lot of my future career, at least over the next 5 years or 10 years even, will be spent on creating the tools that help people develop the right habits and behaviors that will help them to get the outcome. So for example, we run the Financial Joy Academy, and a big part of our obsession at the moment is trying to create a success path that will help to get the outcomes for people. Like, we're creating an app, for example, for Financial Joy Academy. We're rebranding what we're doing. And the goal there is to help people effectively get better results. Because if they get better results, it helps what we're doing get elevated. It helps to promote it to more people. It helps to open more doors and all those things. A lot of the future work I personally see as well from a career perspective is really just doing more of what I enjoy doing. Like, I enjoy speaking, working with companies to help employees, through the companies that we work with, as well as working with individuals in a, maybe one-to-one capacity, coaching perspective, or maybe working with them in a small group perspective, or speaking at various organizations, speaking at churches. But all together, if I had to almost consolidate all of that, I kind of feel like I'll be doing more of what we're doing at the moment, but with an even deeper focus on making sure that the work is helping our communities to get big outcomes. Like, for example, I'd love to be in a position where, I work with, Mary and I work with various charities to get to a point where, our various communities, big things are happening. Like, for example, everybody has a stocks and shares ISA and has invested their first pound in it. People are taking certain leaps to get out of debt, but it's done in a way that people are, kept accountable on the journey. So it's just things, more of things like that really, that might help people to not only get bigger outcomes in their kind of individual and family setup, but from a generational perspective, their children start to see big things also happen in their lives. But I hope today's video has been really useful. I've literally I feel like I've just been sharing, literally as it's been coming to me. But I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. What aspect of today's video really resonated with you in terms of where you are on your career journey, and what questions do you have about careers? It might be careers in finance, or it might be careers in other aspects. Please feel free to jump in the comments and let us know. But other than that, I just want to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to share it with other people and encourage them on their career journey. Take care, people, and we'll speak soon. Bye for now.